Today I'm going to react to Brené Brown. She's an author, a speaker, and a couple years ago, she actually has a Netflix special that she put out called The Call to Courage. It's about her research, and she's a really dynamic speaker. She's got an excellent reputation, and by watching her, we can learn a little more about how we could improve our presentation skills. So I'm going to watch the introduction portion of this message because the special is quite long. And I'll pause it a couple times along the way. And then when it seems like the intro is about over, I will make some summary remarks at the end. So let's take a look.
She's spent 20 years studying courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy, wrote 5 New York Times #1 bestsellers, and her TED Talk is one of the most watched in the world. Please welcome Brené Brown.
Wow. That's a warm welcome. That's a warm welcome. By the way, she's already doing something without ever having said a word. She had someone introduce her. And she's a bestseller. She's been doing this for 20 years. Everybody knows her. You can do this too. So I don't care where you're speaking. I once spoke to 4 people at a lunch, and they introduced me. So whenever you're going to speak anywhere, bring a card with you, a note card that has your name and a couple of interesting points about you that relate to that audience and relate to that message, about your background. And then before you ever talk, just like her, that person who introduces you already builds your credibility. And they're getting to know you before you even say a word. It's a really smart technique. Okay, let's listen to this rock star introduction here. That's unbelievable.
Hi, everybody. Woo! Hi. How's it going? It was so funny. I'm backstage. They're like, "Can we take your purse?" I'm like, "No." It's like totally a Texas thing where I always have to have my purse and an exit plan. I'm not sure until I walk out here that I'm actually going to do it. But I am so happy to be with y'all tonight. And I have to say, honestly, the older I get, the more I realize that time is the big, precious, unrenewable resource. Yes or no? Yeah. So thank you for spending it with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I think we're going to have some fun, talk about some hard stuff, laugh a little bit, and hopefully learn something from each other.
So this is a fantastic opening. Already she's doing exactly what we tell presenters to do. She started with an attention grabber. It might not have seemed like much because she's so natural, but she said, "Hey, how you doing?" Big wave. She welcomed everybody non-verbally. And then she used a little bit of humor, telling a story about not wanting to give up her purse and needing an exit strategy. And then she is engaging the audience in that way where it feels like there's a relationship, there's a dynamic back and forth. She's really stacking up, what I call stacking. She's not just saying a quotation and then she moves into her message, or an example and then she moves in. She's using all of these things: humor, examples, engagement, questions. Fantastic. That's called stacking. And you want to use more than one technique in your attention grabber to give people a chance to settle down into what you're going to say. And then she went into the key purpose. She said, and that's how you know she's done with her attention grabber, because she said, so time is precious, and tonight, thank you for spending the time. We're going to laugh. We're going to learn. And that's the overall point. We're going to laugh. We're going to learn.
I'm always laughing when I'm listening to the bio that, she studies shame, empathy, courage, and vulnerability. You have no idea how handy that comes in my life. So it really, not just in my work, but in my life, because how many of you know, I know, I recognize some of y'all, but so I know you know me, but how many of you know that I'm super introverted? Like, yeah. Where are all the introverts? Like,
I would not have guessed that about her.
It's super handy when I'm traveling because I'll be sitting next to someone and sometimes I'm in the mood to chat and sometimes I'm not. And so they'll say, "So what do you do?" And if I'm not in the mood to chat, I'll be like, I study shame, what do you do? And they're just like,
okay. Wonderful. She's following a classic public speaking introduction. We talked about her attention grabber, her purpose, and now she's giving her background. She's establishing who she is, her credibility. She even said, oh, I was laughing as I was listening to the bio. Remember we talked about someone introducing her with the card? So now she's continuing the bio. She's saying, oh, I study shame and vulnerability. And how many of you know I'm an introvert? And how many of you know that? How many introverts are out there? She's engaging as she's sharing about who she is. And that establishes common ground. So we want to listen to her. We want to lean into her message because we feel like we have some similarity. I would not have guessed that she's an introvert because she's speaking, but when she's not on stage, apparently she's more introverted. So she's creating a background story for us to help us get to know her. We call this establishing credibility, but it can be anything about your background that helps us create common ground between the speaker and the listeners.
And then recently it was really funny because I was like, oh, I study courage and vulnerability. And the guy was like, oh, opposite ends of the spectrum. And there's that minute where you're like, do I engage or do I not engage? I was like, no, actually they're the same. You know, courage, you can't really be brave without vulnerability. It's like, oh, yeah, no, the opposite ends. Now, I can understand
she just did something
why it's
amazing.
Complicated for some people
and I'll
to
tell
get
you about
that.
It in a
took
moment.
me
I want to see
20
where
years
she
of
goes
trying
here.
to disprove that I had to be vulnerable, to be brave. But this came to life for me when we started looking at covers for Daring Greatly, which was the first book where I wrote about courage and vulnerability, right? So I say to them, let's make sure we really capture the spirit of vulnerability and courage, that we really have to put ourselves out there. And they're like, we've got it.
So what she's doing here is telling us her thesis statement. But unlike many speakers, many wonderful speakers, she doesn't just say, my main point today is, or my bottom line is, which would be fine. She doesn't do that. She does it in a much more artful way. She does it through a couple of examples. She says, oh, I was on a plane and this guy said, oh, courage and vulnerability, opposite ends of the spectrum, which I'm sure is a common misunderstanding in her work. And she says, no, you have to be brave to be vulnerable. Or she may have said you have to be vulnerable to be brave. She's connecting that. They're not opposites, they're connecting them. And she said it a couple different ways. And then she just said right there to her publisher, let's talk about this because I really want the cover to capture the spirit of this connection. So she's emphasizing her thesis that connects bravery and vulnerability through examples. It's just a really artful way to do it. Instead of coming right out and saying it, she says it through the illustrations, through the examples, and it's really clear.
Do you need to see the cover? And I was like, yeah, I need to see the cover. So they sent me the cover. I've named that piece White Guy on a Wire. I was like, I would never buy that book. Had I known what was coming next, this would have been the cover of Daring Greatly. I guarantee it, because I go back and I'm like, that's not gonna work. I don't want a white dude on the front of the book, period. Especially with like a 1980s briefcase. So then I get an email that says, this is it, we all love it. And I'm like, oh man, dude, don't use your invisible army with me. Like, I'm a shame researcher. Like, you can't do the we all love it thing with me. Like, I will drill you down till you are crying. And who is the we? Unless you got a mouse in your pocket, that is chicken shit. Like, no we, just like, I love it. So I'm looking like, oh God, we all love it. We all think this is it. We're all excited. We're all behind it. So you know, right? I'm gonna test your empathic powers here. If you're really highly empathic, there'll be no laughter. I was like, what? Okay, so here's the thing. Like, every woman born in this country, I've had to do my share of body image work. And I have, to the point where I am dangerous. I like myself so much. Like, I'm good with everything, right? Yeah. But the chance of my name being under an elephant ass on the front of a book is zero. That's zero. There's zero opportunity for that to happen.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there and talk about all of these big picture strengths that I'm seeing. So she's doing a fantastic, really masterful job with this message, this opening, and this audience. So first of all, the content itself is just killer engaging. She's using, first of all, she really cares about the topic. That's obvious, but she's using such a variety of material. She's using examples and visuals and humor, ton of humor, which we'll talk about more in a second. Little stories, little information about herself, engagement, Q&A, already Q&A and an introduction. I mean, that's really masterful. And so the content itself is incredibly engaging and interesting. Even if you don't care about this topic, she makes you care about it. Second thing is that she hits all of her points. We're looking at just the introduction here, and she's hitting all the points. It sounds like one connected story because there's so much of a natural flow to it. But if you diagram it, she's doing what you would expect on a presentation checklist. She has her attention grabber. She explains the purpose of her message, the main purpose, to laugh and to learn together. She gives her background and credibility, and then she gives her thesis statement, you might call it. She doesn't do a preview statement that I've heard, but you don't often hear a preview statement for a keynote message like this. But it sounds like one big story because there's such a natural logic and flow to it, and she's practiced it probably enough to really make it sound conversational. Let's talk about her humoristic style. This is probably the number one strength. And I think the reason why it's such a strength is because it's unexpected. If I were to tell you, I'm going to talk to you about vulnerability and courage and bravery, would you really expect me to be this humorous? But see, what she does is she picks a style that fits the message because it allows her to talk about difficult things, hard topic, but also do it in an interesting and fun way. So it makes a harder topic easier to talk about. It's a genius choice to come at this from a standpoint of humor. It makes the whole thing more interesting and engaging, and time just flies. Also, her delivery is really warm. So she's, her voice is excited, her face is excited, she's got lots of gesture, she's very animated, and that really enhances her message. Everything she says is conversational, or you might call it extemporaneous. That's the official word. She's not reading from notes that I can see of any kind. She doesn't have teleprompters. And she's making little adjustments as she talks. So that tells me she hasn't memorized it word for word, but rather has internalized this. That's extemporaneous conversational. And by the way, how do you get there? She knows her stuff. She has probably done some version of this message dozens of times, 50, maybe 100 times. When you know your stuff, you get the feeling that she's able to improvise and extend things or cut things if she wants to. So you want to really work, when you're doing this, work on your message behind the scenes. She's probably taking this on the road. We're not going to take our message on the road, but you can practice in the privacy of your own home or your office a couple dozen times if you need to really get it to the place where you have a mastery of the material. So I'm mentioning a couple words like delivery and style, and those are concepts from public speaking. And I made a related video on the 5 canons of rhetoric or public speaking. And it's a really helpful, instructive education, not it's not a reaction video, but it's an instructive video that you can use to help shape your public speaking and improve your public speaking skills. I'll put a link to that in the description below. So 2 questions. What are your impressions of Brene Brown's public speaking skills? What are your gut feeling, your initial reaction? And secondly, who else would you like me to react to? I would love to hear your comments in that section below the video. We can learn from any speaker, whether they're good or bad. So suggest someone and maybe we'll take a look and we can all learn together. So thanks for watching. Until next time, God bless, and I will see you soon.